Long before Rome trembled at the name of Spartacus, there existed a people feared for their ferocity and resilience, the Thracians. Spread across the rugged landscapes of the Balkans, they were known to Greeks and Romans as relentless warriors, brave, untamed, and impossible to fully control. History often remembers empires, not the peoples they crushed. The Thracians left few written records, but their reputation echoed across the ancient world through blood, steel, and rebellion. They fought as mercenaries, resisted conquest, and lived by a warrior code shaped by harsh land and constant conflict. This is the story of a civilization largely erased, yet immortalized, through one man who challenged Rome itself. To understand Spartacus, we must first understand the people who forged him. The Thracians were not a single nation, but a collection of tribes spread across southeastern Europe, mainly in the Balkans. They shared language roots, customs, and a strong warrior culture, yet remained politically fragmented, valuing tribal independence over centralized rule. To the ancient Greeks and Romans, the Thracians were both admired and feared. They were seen as fierce fighters, skilled horsemen, and unpredictable allies. At the same time, they were labeled as barbarians, a term that reflected cultural difference more than inferiority. This lack of unity made the Thracians difficult to conquer completely, but also easy to erase from history once their lands fell under foreign control. Thrace was a land of mountains, forests, and wide plains, a geography that shaped both survival and warfare. The harsh terrain encouraged mobility, ambush tactics, and deep knowledge of the land, giving Thracian warriors a natural advantage in battle. The region was divided among numerous tribes, each with its own leaders, traditions, and territory. Loyalty was local and personal, centered on clan and tribe rather than on any unified state or king. This fragmented identity preserved Thracian independence for centuries. Yet it also prevented long-term political unity, making Thracian society revolved around the warrior elite. Status was earned through combat, bravery, and loyalty, while chiefs and nobles led through personal authority rather than rigid institutions. Beyond warfare, Thracians lived from agriculture, herding, and trade with neighboring cultures. Daily life was harsh, shaped by constant conflict and the need for self-reliance, but it was also rich in rituals, feasting, and oral tradition. Honor, courage, and reputation defined a person's worth. In Thracian culture, to live without freedom or dignity was often considered worse than death. Religion played a central role in Thracian life, closely tied to warfare and the idea of death. Many Thracians believed in the immortality of the soul, seeing death not as an end, but as a transition to another existence. Their gods were often associated with nature, war, and the afterlife, and religious rituals included sacrifices, ecstatic ceremonies, and warrior cults. Faith reinforced courage, making fear of death less powerful on the battlefield. This belief system produced fighters who saw combat as a spiritual act. To die in battle was not a tragedy, it was a passage to something greater. The Thracians were renowned across the ancient world as exceptional fighters. Their reputation was built on speed, aggression, and adaptability rather than rigid formations. They favored mobility, surprise, and close combat methods well suited to their rugged homeland. They fought with distinctive weapons such as curved swords, spears, and light shields, and many served as mercenaries for Greek city-states and later for Rome itself. Even their enemies acknowledged their courage and effectiveness in battle. To fight like a Thracian meant embracing risk and ferocity. War was not merely a profession, it was a way of life, deeply woven into identity, honor, and survival. Contact with the Greek world brought trade, warfare, and cultural exchange. Greek colonies along the coast exposed the Thracians to new goods and ideas, but also to exploitation and conflict. They were allies one year and enemies the next. Roman expansion changed everything. Thrace was gradually absorbed into the Roman sphere through conquest, diplomacy, and forced integration. Tribal autonomy eroded as Roman administration, taxes, and military control took hold. For the Thracians, this transition marked the beginning of the end. From independent warriors to subjects of an empire that valued their strength but denied their freedom. As Roman control expanded, thousands of Thracians were captured and enslaved. Warriors who once fought for honor and freedom were reduced to property, sold in markets, or forced into brutal labor. Many ended up in the Roman arenas as gladiators. Their natural aggression, speed, and combat skills made them ideal fighters for public spectacle. The arena turned Thracian warfare into entertainment violence stripped of meaning, controlled by Rome. For Rome, the games were a display of power. For enslaved Thracians, they were a daily reminder of humiliation, and for some, the spark that would ignite rebellion. Spartacus was born in Thrace, a land defined by warfare, tribal loyalty, and resistance to domination. From an early age, survival meant strength, discipline, and an unbreakable sense of personal freedom. This environment shaped his mentality long before Rome enslaved him. Thracian culture valued courage over obedience and viewed submission as dishonor values that would later clash violently with Roman authority. Spartacus did not emerge in isolation. He was the product of a warrior people whose traditions, beliefs, and hatred of subjugation made rebellion not an act of desperation, but a moral necessity. Spartacus likely began his contact with Rome as an auxiliary soldier, valued for his combat skills but never treated as an equal. At some point, he was enslaved, betrayed by the system he had served. Trained as a gladiator, Rome attempted to turn him into entertainment. Instead, the arena refined his discipline, leadership, and tactical awareness. He learned how Romans fought, thought, and commanded. When rebellion came, Spartacus was no longer just a fighter. He was a leader shaped by Thracian tradition and Roman cruelty, capable of uniting slaves, defeating legions, and shaking the foundations of the Republic. The rebellion led by Spartacus reflected Thracian military culture at its core. Mobility, surprise attacks, and decentralized command mirrored the tactics long used by Thracian tribes against stronger enemies. Discipline was enforced through shared hardship rather than hierarchy, creating loyalty based on trust instead of fear. This approach allowed a diverse force of slaves to operate with cohesion against Roman legions. For Rome, the revolt was more than a military threat. It was a cultural shock. A man shaped by a barbarian warrior tradition had exposed the vulnerability of the Republic itself. After Rome crushed the slave revolt, Thrace was fully absorbed into the Roman world. Over generations, Roman laws, language, and customs replaced tribal structures, gradually dissolving Thracian identity. Unlike Rome or Greece, the Thracians left few written records. Their language faded, their traditions were absorbed or erased, and their names slowly disappeared from history books. What remained was not a nation, but an echo. The Thracians survived only through fragments and through one man whose rebellion ensured they would never be completely forgotten.